자기 전 누구나 위해 노래한 적 없어 길어지는 대화 속 정신을 차린 일이고
Managing a home is truly an art, and when done alone, it can feel overwhelming. While we all do our best, there's always room for improvement. Let's be honest, it can get tricky, especially when you're juggling everything solo. Even if we think we've got it all figured out, there's always something we can tweak to make life smoother. To start, I'm prepping a quick and easy breakfast, appe. It's one of those dishes that's simple to make but feels special every time. I'll get the prep work done now and cook it later when we're ready to eat. While I'm chopping, mixing, and organizing my ingredients, I'll also take you along as I share tips on how I keep things running smoothly at home. We have to combine semolina with yogurt, and it's important we rest it for a while. We will of course adjust the consistency later. We have to chop some veggies and keep them aside as well. These veggies can be of your choice, but I like to use a combination of chopped onions, capsicums, carrots, green chilies and coriander. Some people like to use the carrots in a grated form, but I like to keep them in smaller chunks so that there is a bit of bite in the recipe. Green chilies really add a lot of flavor too. It's all about finding ways to make daily tasks simpler, more efficient and less stressful. In today's video, I'm sharing practical tips and tricks that have helped me ease the way I manage things around the house. These aren't about finding a perfect balance or doing everything perfectly. They're about small, effective changes that make a big difference in everyday life. I totally support meal planning, which can be done on a board, a laptop, or even a phone. Before, I used to keep track of my meals using a plain whiteboard, but now I have these vibrant, colorful boards with a template already on them. I believe I save a ton of time this way. This one serves as a weekly planner, which I use for capturing my meals among other things. Because of their magnetic back, they are simple to adhere to and can be cleaned with only a cloth. Additionally, I like to include my weekly evening snack ideas or sometimes even my midday micro meal ideas like nuts or shakes, etc. As you can see, the mixture has become considerably thicker after resting since the semolina absorbs all the additional moisture and kind of swells up. We will now add salt, water and veggies to this and adjust the consistency with water. Curry leaves also add an amazing flavor, so I've chopped those and added those as well. Right before cooking, it's important we add a bit of Eno to this. That will make the batter super fluffy and light. It's crucial that we learn to be adaptable with our schedules while still staying on course. For example, it's been said that a tall, rigid tree or stiff tree is more likely to be uprooted or split during a storm than a tree that is more flexible and will bend when the stormy wind strikes it. The flexible tree is more likely to survive. I'm sure we've all heard of this story. These appes taste best if made with a touch of ghee. I like to brush a little bit of ghee on the sides after rotating them. Keep rotating these if you like all the sides to be perfectly brown and cooked through. For a long time, I was extremely rigid and couldn't get anything done if my routines were interrupted in any way. However, I eventually came to terms with the fact that as housewives, we need to be more adaptable and learn to incorporate unexpected events into our daily schedules. And not just as homemakers, I believe this applies to us all. Now, this realization completely shifted my perspective. Motivate yourself to not complete the task but to somehow get started. Trust me, it works. It's common for jobs to seem daunting and time consuming even before we begin. But after we accomplish them or complete them, we realize they were really rather little and our fears were unnecessary. So motivate yourself to start your work and not to finish your work, if you know what I mean. A completely distinct kind of a high is produced by the hormones of accomplishment and a sensation of achievement. Imagine how your house feels and looks after everything is done. That should give you a fantastic way to start the day. As I previously said, we just need 2 minutes to get started. I suppose it's true that once we get started, we all keep going and accomplish more than we even imagined. I had been wanting to tidy up this section, and while I was in the room, I also considered cleaning the study table. I prefer to get rid of things that don't really need to be here as well as things that may have gathered over time, so I'm removing all of that. Now this brings me to the topic of attention. Since it's extremely easy to stray from our initial plans, it's ideal to set up a time, either mentally or over the phone, and then try to complete everything inside that window of time. This greatly helps people speeding tasks and completing work on schedule. So, if you are anything like me and tend to end up with a bunch of unfinished tasks that you can always go back to later, I highly recommend using a timer to keep yourself on track and not feel overwhelmed with the other things that you may have picked up on the way. Waking up early is one of the simplest ways to set a positive and energized tone for the day. In many of my videos, I've shared how I use those peaceful morning hours to either cook, focus on my health, or enjoy a slow and intentional start with meditation. But once those morning rituals are done, another practice I truly enjoy is taking mindful breaks. For me, breaks often mean reading through your lovely comments or reviewing what I've shared on social media. It's my way of relaxing and recharging and still making meaningful use of my time. It's a little pause that helps me unwind while staying connected and intentional. To help further, I make use of this habit and tasks tracker, which helps me keep a check of what all I've achieved for the day or for the week. I like to mark everything that was done on that day. These beautiful boards being sold by Coder Mum's Life are ready to be shipped anywhere in the world. You can place your order from the link shared in the description box below. And don't forget, there's a 15% discount going on right now for all the purchases until the 2nd of Jan. So keep a track of your habits and make your life a bit more productive through these planners. The one thing that I always make sure to do is have a look at the fridge. But while I'm at it, I like to give a quick wipe down to all the mats laid and also the back side of the fridge. The trick is to not remove everything in one go. Instead, go layer by layer, or better put shelf by shelf. This way, the entire process won't be too overwhelming for you. Wipe down the mats, preferably with an organic or chemical-free solution. Moving items into smaller containers is a smart idea and should be done every day anyways. I'm shifting my remaining custard in a small jar. I'm restocking the nuts that usually reside in this section of the fridge. Now that winter has arrived, I could consider transferring them to the open shelves outside the fridge, because I know they won't really spoil. However, for the time being, I'll stick with the current arrangement. Whenever I'm doing basic housework or maintenance, I try not to add more work and instead focus on the basics. Placing butter in a proper container so that it's always easy to reach for. My secret to keeping a tiny refrigerator and simplifying my life is to cut larger vegetables into smaller pieces. For example, chopping a large cauliflower into smaller pieces may not save that much room, but it still keeps the refrigerator more orderly and under control. I'm excited to learn how to properly blend, grind and make my own spices at home, like coriander powder. Since this is the easiest and requires the least amount of labor, I began with it. Gradually, I may be able to start grinding more spices like cumin, chilies to have richer and fresher flavors at home. Given their obvious visibility, I'm transferring some of the surplus tea and chia seeds to these containers. I like to store them in my backup pantry, which is where I store extra supplies. Coriander seeds once cooled can also be ground and shifted to a jar. Do important things first and the rest later on. Like some small items that may be gathering on the kitchen counter, if put to place, can help ease any frustration. What's important for that day has to be decided by you and then work on it accordingly. Not all things will take the same priority every day. Some will have to be dealt with a higher attention on a certain day over the others. So set your own priorities and don't get influenced by others. It's a good idea to get the containers and jars cleaned on the go. I will fill this previously washed and dried glass jar back up with flour and at the same time put this empty container to wash in the dishwasher. The rice container also needs some cleaning, so that will go inside as well. Now make sure to remove the silicone lining on the lids of these jars. They should not be washed ideally in the dishwasher. If I'm not wrong, that is. So what I do is I remove them if I'm not going to be hand washing these containers. Shifting the leftover rice elsewhere. If one does things on the go, the house remains clean all the time and you won't even feel a thing. In one of my older video, I shared a basic cake recipe and I did get a lot of requests for the eggless version of it. Although it's not a required ingredient, I genuinely believe that eggs give the cake recipe the much needed sponginess, if you know what I mean. But today we are making an eggless version, so here it is. We will make use of yogurt, but I usually don't like the messy cover which it comes with, so I end up transferring it into my own container for ease of use later on. Now to make this cake recipe, we will combine all the wet ingredients on one side, for which we will add vinegar to the milk and set it aside for about 10 minutes. And after that, we will add yogurt to this mixture along with either butter or oil. The original recipe calls for butter, but I used oil instead. We're going to be adding vanilla essence to it, of course. In another bowl, we will add the dry ingredients that are flour, baking powder, baking soda and sugar. I've shared all the measurements on screen. I'm making a much smaller batch today. You can of course double it up. Now combining the wet and the dry together. There isn't really much to this recipe. This one comes out soft from inside and tastes yummy too. We will bring it out sometime later. The advice to invest in the right kind of organizers to make your life easy is spot on, but it doesn't cover everything. A drawer like this, left untouched for months, may become unattractive, even really difficult to use, but all it needs is a bit of cleaning and reorganization. Just by taking everything out of the drawer and putting it back in a more organized fashion this time, you may completely transform its appearance. These acrylic organizers which I purchased a long time ago are still doing their purpose here. With all the candle holders neatly lined up, I can store the tea light candles in one place and they'll be much easier to find. These are some of the cork lids of the glass candles that I've collected. I don't throw these lids usually, instead I save them to give height to my plants inside a bigger planter or pot. So that's a trick you could use for yourself. Organizing is an ongoing effort. It doesn't mean we never repair areas, it just means we attend to them periodically. Once the fundamental framework is created, life becomes very simple. This is also the time to declutter and remove ugly looking labels. One easy way to get rid of leftover candle wax is to pour hot water on it. I've been using this way for so long now and it takes only a few minutes. Usually the wax pops right out, and if not, it becomes so soft that you can wash it off easily. So there you have it, just a few of the numerous tiny and huge ways that I manage my house as a homemaker. Before we part ways, I sincerely request you all to please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing the videos with your friends. Until next time, here's Home Gupshup signing off.